Lazarus. How is that even possible? Hebrews 9:27 tells us, "And just as it is appointed and destined for all men to die once, and after this comes certain judgment." This interpretation of Hebrews 9:27 outlines a principle rather than an absolute and unchangeable law. For example, Lazarus and others were raised from the dead and apparently died twice. Yet this does not disprove Hebrews 9:27. The first man on this list was a friend of Jesus. This miracle was remarkable for two reasons. First, Jesus was part of this great testimony, and second, it was also the time that Jesus wept. Lazarus, along with his two sisters, Mary and Martha, were disciples of Jesus. They're mentioned multiple times in the Gospels, including John 11, 1-2. But there was an issue this time. Lazarus was unwell and near death. Knowing that Jesus had the capacity to heal their brother, Mary and Martha sent a message to Jesus, pleading with him to come. John 11:4. When we heard this, Jesus said, "This sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it." When he received the message, Jesus vowed that the illness would not end in death, but in God's glory. These bad circumstances, like the blind man's, were not the result of sin. They were intended to honor Jesus. Lazarus' illness was not a punishment or a sign of defiance. Rather, it served a spiritual function. John 11, 5-6, New American Standard Bible. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was sick, he then stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. According to John, Jesus loved Martha, her sister, and Lazarus, and they knew his feelings. They had a close relationship with him. Despite this, Jesus remained in the exact location for 2 more days. His procrastination appeared to reject his promise of recovery. He deferred his arrival, though, since he loved them. This passage shows an important truth regarding prayer. In our moments of battle, we want God to respond instantly. When he doesn't, we're tempted to think he doesn't care. But the reality is that we don't comprehend his timing or his objectives because his manners are not our ways. There is a method to his apparent contradictions. He answers in this manner because he loves us and seeks his glory. Believe him on his promises. John 11, 7-8. Then after this, he said to the disciples, "Let us go to Judea again." The disciples said to him, "Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and yet you are going there again." After he had said this, he went on to tell them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to wake him up." John 11, 12-15. The disciples then said to him, "Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will come out of it." Now Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought that he was speaking about actual sleep. So Jesus said to them plainly, "Lazarus died, and I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, so that you may believe. But let's go to him." Lazarus had been dead and buried for 4 days when Jesus and his followers arrived in Bethany. Even though the funeral had ended, many friends had come to comfort Martha and Mary. Martha approached Jesus and pleaded, "Lord, if you were here, my brother would not have died." "This is entirely your fault, Jesus. I called you, but you did not respond. None of this would have happened if you had listened to me." However, she does not give up hope, since she continues, "Even today, I know that whatever you seek from God, God will grant you." As a result, Martha felt both faith and uncertainty. When we least anticipate it, uncertainty appears. When that happens, convey your doubts to God in prayer. He's omniscient and already knows about them. Believe in his ability to handle your disappointment and spiritual hardship. I am the resurrection and the life, he informed her. The Son of God has life in himself and may give it to others, allowing them to live forever. He is the source of eternal life. That is how he can claim that anyone who believes in me will never die. That is, he will move directly from physical life to eternal life. The present tense, lives and believes in me, also indicates that Jesus is a current tense deliverer rather than a future one. Though she didn't understand everything or know what would happen, Martha trusted Jesus and confessed him as the Messiah, the Son of God. John 11:31-35. Then the Jews who were with her in the house and were consoling her, when they saw that Mary had gotten up quickly and left, they followed her, thinking that she was going to the tomb to weep there. So when Mary came to the place where Jesus was, she saw him and fell at his feet, saying to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Therefore, when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and was troubled, and he said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus wept. The first words out of Mary's mouth were the same as her sister's. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Jesus was deeply moved by her crying and asks to see the tomb. Then we read the shortest yet most meaningful verse in the entire Bible. Jesus wept. Those with Mary and Martha could witness how much Jesus cared about Lazarus. Some were baffled, asking why a man who could restore sight to the blind couldn't keep a sick man alive. If they believed preventing a man's death would be amazing, they were in for a rude awakening. Jesus told them to remove the stone from the burial cave's mouth. Martha opposed this. Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. She comprehended Jesus' wish to pay his respects to her deceased brother, but the stench of decay would be unbearable. Jesus corrected her, saying, "Didn't I tell you that if you believe, you would see the glory of God?" He challenged her to show her faith in him by allowing the stone to be removed. Jesus didn't want her explanation about bodily decay. He wanted her to walk by faith, putting one foot in front of the other. Faith is acting like God is telling the truth. Then demonstrating the glory of God would be up to Jesus. Faith must precede sight if we want to see God's supernatural intervention in our circumstances. We will never know what God has in mind until we obey what he has revealed. John 11:41-42, New American Standard Bible. So they removed the stone, and Jesus raised his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me, but I knew that you always hear me. Nevertheless, because of the people standing around, I say it, so that they may believe that you sent me." Jesus could have arrived on time and performed a private miracle to heal Lazarus. Instead, he came late to put on a public, supernatural show, confirming his messianic identity and inspiring trust in a large crowd. Though it would cause temporary anguish, it would have a significant spiritual influence and bring God more incredible honor. John 11:43-44. And when he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" Out came the man who had died, bound hand and foot with wrappings, and his face was wrapped around with cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." Jesus called the dead man, "Lazarus, come out." A living man emerged from the tomb, still bound and clothed in burial cloths. The dead had been brought back to life. This is just a taste of what's to come. Lazarus would bodily die again one day. On the other hand, those who believe in Jesus will participate in the everlasting resurrection and live forever.